Welcome back to the Caffeinated Cruiser. My name is JD, and if you're anything like me, over the last few years, you've probably been indoctrinated with CARDO communicator ads, and you're probably wondering, is it worth it, or should I save a few bucks and just go with the cheap Amazon brand, FODSPORTS, or some other no-name? So we're going to jump right into it. If you don't want to watch the whole video, I will say in short form, yes, it's worth it, but there are a couple caveats where I do think going with the cheaper option does make some sense. So let's jump right into it. So in front of you right now, we have my Scorpion XOR1 Air and the CARDO Packtalk Edge, if I'm not mistaken. Then we have another Scorpion helmet. I forget what it's called, but I've got on here my FODSPORTS FX8. And then over here, we have my wife's helmet, which is a Scorpion R420. And this is rocking the, hang on, the M1S Pro. To be honest, between these two FODSPORTS sitting here, I don't actually know which one of these FODSPORTS is supposed to be better. They're so close in price, and it's really hard to make heads or tails of what their lineup is. I know they've got like probably half a dozen different versions of FODSPORTS communicators out there. I've owned these two plus two other models, and then I've also gifted a friend a different model as well. So I've tried a bunch of them. I've put down a ton of miles. They are a communicator that I first bought when I started riding. And as you can see, it's what I still have on my wife's helmet. So let's jump straight into it. Is CARDO that good when it comes to sound quality? I'm going to say no, it's not. It is significantly better in overall audio quality than the FODSPORTS, but it is not like audiophile type audio. If you're like most of us and you use some sort of AirPods for your daily headphones, I will say they sound worse than both the standard and AirPod Pros. There's basically no low end when it comes to CARDO, or very little low end, and it is mostly highs and mids. Anyone that tells you that the CARDO sounds amazing is simply lying. And when I say that, I'm specifically talking about music quality. It is okay, it gets the job done, and you can easily hear it, and it is clear. So in that sense, it's very good. But there's not a whole lot of range in your music. There's not a ton of bass. It's not studio quality headphones. It's not even as good as AirPods, but it is pretty good for what it does. And I will say the volume range is very good, and where it really shines is the audio quality when you're connected to other riders and speaking with them, and or when you're using like an audiobook or podcast or something like that while you're riding. Now, FODSPORTS, on the other hand, the audio quality between them for music, I would say they're closer to CARDO than a lot of people make out. Now, when I ride, I always have in earplugs. I think it makes not only the wind noise a lot more bearable, it makes it so I can ride a lot longer. But I will say for any of the communicators in front of you, with earplugs in, you can actually hear the sound coming out of them better. You get a little bit more low end sound coming from it, and it takes out that high-pitched screechy sound that you can get when you turn these all the way up. But where FODSPORTS really does the trick is below 60 miles an hour when you're just riding by yourself and you just want to listen to some music. Neither of these get super loud, and especially on the freeway on a windy day, it's going to be hard to really hear much of what's going on. It sounds a little silly, but I would say the FODSPORTS above 60 miles an hour, you know what you're listening to, but you can't really hear any of the nuances. It's hard to make out individual words or even the full musical range that a song might present. But below that, if you're not riding on the freeway and you mainly ride by yourself, FODSPORTS will do their job just fine. There's not such a significant difference in audio quality between the two of these that I think you have to have a CARDO if you just want some music playing. If you want a better music experience, definitely get the CARDO. It is better for sure, but it is not night and day. And when I compared them back to back earlier this year, I won't say that I was disappointed by the CARDO, but it wasn't such a big difference for just music. So let's get into a little bit more of the communication side of the communicator. I know a lot of us, when we ride, we are just using it for music while we're riding. But for those of you that ride with friends, how does it shake out? I've put down thousands of miles riding with buddies with my FODSPORTS, some with FODSPORTS themselves and some with CARDOs. And I will say, something in the software when CARDO connects over to FODSPORTS, it is not great. One side or the other ends up with very quiet audio, and it makes it really hard to hear the person talking. And I remember when I'd be riding with my FODSPORTS and my buddy Matt would have his CARDO on, I'd constantly be going like, "What? What did you say? What? Say that again. Say it a little louder." I'd basically be asking him to yell all the time. But on the other side, in his helmet, he was always telling me that he could hear me perfectly clearly, and I was yelling way too much. So I don't know what that is. It is connecting through Bluetooth. We also tried just doing phone calls to each other versus connecting directly to the communicators. That seemed to help a little bit, but it still seems to be something weird when FODSPORTS connects to a CARDO. And I found out this happened to me as well when I tried to connect my CARDO to my buddy Isaac's FODSPORTS. It did the same thing where he couldn't hear me, but I could hear him perfectly. So that's part of the reason why I've left the FODSPORTS on this helmet and haven't done a second helmet kit yet, is because when I ride with Isaac, I wear this helmet. When I ride with Matt or my other buddies with CARDOs, I wear this helmet. That being said though, when it's just me riding solo, I almost always grab this helmet because the overall audio quality is better enough that I do want to be wearing this helmet, which makes me a little bit sad because I really like the Scorpion helmet. Okay, so let's quickly talk about connecting to other communicators. With the FODSPORTS, I will simply say it is a guessing game. Sometimes it works perfectly, sometimes there's zero issues, and as soon as me and a buddy ride up to each other, it connects instantly to, the last person I was paired to. And other times it is just a straight guessing game and we are just button mashing. And I'd say that's kind of the theme of the FODSPORTS. If you're just riding by yourself and you're just using it as Bluetooth headphones for some music, it's okay at that price. Oftentimes we'll get weird glitches. We'll get times where it just drops a communication and then comes back on. We've had to power them off and back on and do the pairing modes, and it's so hard to figure it out. It is a very what's the word I'm looking for? It is not a dependable way to connect. And I will say that is one of the reasons where if you're riding with friends, the CARDO might make more sense. Switching back over to the CARDO. So when it comes to connecting the CARDO to another CARDO, that is a night and day difference. It is so easy. A couple of my buddies and I, we went up north for a camping trip earlier this year, and both of them had CARDOs, which is why I purchased a CARDO, because I wanted to have that better communication. And I will say after about 10 minutes maybe of fiddling around on the first day before we left for the ride, once we did get them all three connected, we had no issues after that. We could all hear each other perfectly. We could swap back and forth between listening to music and talking to each other with no issues. We could turn off the communicators and then just put on the helmet the next day, turn them back on, and they immediately paired up to each other in the exact same way. And then even a couple months later, I went to ride over to my buddy's place to go for a ride together, and when I was still probably like an eighth of a mile away, it all of a sudden connected and we were talking before I even got into his driveway. So I will say when it comes to connecting to other helmets, the CARDO is far, far superior and much easier, especially once you first get it connected. One of the things we found out we could do on that ride with the CARDOs is we could have music playing in our own individual helmets, whatever playlist or radio we wanted to be listening to, but we could still be connected. What would happen would be if one of us started talking into our microphone, the other two's helmet audio, it would lower the total volume of the music. It wouldn't turn it off, but it would just lower it till it was in the background. We could talk to each other just fine, and then as soon as we were done talking, everyone's music would just auto adjust back up. And it was actually seamless. It was super, super great. It kind of felt like you were just in the car with someone and had music playing in the background. It wasn't noticeably pulling you away from the music. It was just, oh, now I'm hearing my buddy talk, and as soon as he's done talking, it just raises the audio back up. That was great. Another cool thing that CARDO has as an option for it is you can record microphone audio directly to CARDO through their app. And I've done that for several videos. My Royal Enfield Bear 650 video, that's all audio I recorded directly into the helmet while I was riding. And I've done that for other videos as well, and videos I'm working on. I'll put up a quick clip of me talking in a video I'm currently working on about why riding is such a good thing for mental health, and why I think people should keep riding even when they have children. So I'll quick let this play.
Really anything I can look back on and say, yep, that's something me and my dad were able to do together and share through my childhood. As adults, we've been able to connect and we have a great relationship now, but as a child, that was not something that we really had.
Going back to the features of the FODSPORTS, Technically, they do have features. I think both supposedly have voice assistant control. They might even have AM FM radios. They might even have the feature to be able to talk while music is playing. But to be perfectly honest, I have no idea how to make that work. And it has worked super inconsistently for me. You can play music individually into your FODSPORTS, and then when you want to talk, you can click a button and then connect back over. Again, this is not a dependable feature. Sometimes it worked fine and sometimes it didn't. Sometimes you'd hit the button 5 or 6 times and it wouldn't connect. Sometimes you'd have to have the other person hit their button to connect because yours wouldn't work for some reason. It's super strange. And again, like I said, I think that's the theme of the FODSPORTS, is that it is okay for just riding by yourself, but as soon as you add in any complexity of connecting to someone else, it's hit or miss what's going to happen with it. Okay, so microphone quality. When you're actually speaking to someone, whether it's a phone call or whether you're connecting to another helmet, CARDO wins hands down. When I ride, I can quickly make a phone call using voice assistant commands, which the CARDO does actually pretty good, and it sounds crystal clear. I've taken business calls on it. I've taken calls from my manager, my wife, and my wife has even mentioned that when I'm riding with this helmet on, she can't even tell if I'm on the bike or not because it sounds so good. It sounds better than connecting to my AirPods or my car audio or anything else. So again, that's a big win for the CARDO itself. For the FODSPORTS, again, if you're lower than 60 miles an hour, you can hear people okay, they can hear you okay, but again, the volume levels are all over the place. I can never tell if I need to be yelling or if I'm talking too loud, and sometimes you just miss stuff for some reason or another. The volume controls are hard to manage on the FODSPORTS as well. They seem to be all the way on or basically all the way off, where the CARDO, there's a much bigger range and it's much easier to set your audio based on what's coming in. So I think we've talked about almost all of the main features. We've talked about music quality, microphone quality, we've talked about connectivity to other people, voice recording. The CARDO app also does have equalizer settings, so you have some different audio profiles you can set up with it. And when me and my buddies were on that ride earlier this year, I would say we all had 3 different generations of CARDOs with 3 different feature sets, but yet they all still worked seamlessly with each other. All right, you might notice things look a little bit differently. Earlier when I was recording, my daughter was taking a nap. She woke up, so I had to wait till she went back to bed. So it is 6 or 7 hours later now, and I'm going to try to jump in where I left off. So sorry if things look a little bit different and the lighting's worse. I think the last couple things I want to talk about would be the CARDO voice controls. Now, there's 2 different things you can do. You can say, "Hey CARDO, speed dial," and I think there's some other "Hey CARDO" commands you can use, and that works flawlessly 100% of the time. It is fantastic and it's almost instant. You can also use Hey Cardo to trigger your digital assistant on your phone, and I would say that works 70 or so percent of the time. And I don't know if it's an issue with Cardo or with the microphone picking it up, or if it's an issue with your digital assistant understanding what you're asking for. But again, I found that it's about 70% of the time that that works. So I think that brings me down to maybe the couple of things that I'd say I don't love about the CARDO. One would be that the play and pause functions are actually different buttons on it. So you use one button to pause your music and a different button to play your music, which is not super intuitive. The other thing is that the volume is on a rolling dial, and I feel like I always intuitively want to roll it the wrong direction. Not a big deal, something that's easily adjusted to, but still a little bit funky. As far as battery life, I really do think the CARDO and the FODSPORTS is very, very similar. Both of them, I rarely ever have to charge, and when I do, I mean, it holds a charge for probably dozens of rides. So I guess the last thing to really talk about is price. These FODSPORTS, the FXA and the M1S Pro. These two, you can get them for anywhere between $60 and $100. The CARDO itself, it lists for $400, $399, which I think is wildly expensive for what is functionally a Bluetooth pair of headphones. But that being said, the software that's in the CARDO does honestly do a really great job of, again, isolating the voice, getting rid of background noise, and those other niceties like the voice commands. I think it's super great to be able to put on the helmet, quickly turn it on, and then from just saying, "Hey, voice assistant, play my Spotify or speed dial someone," it works super well, and that's super convenient. I really do like being able to do that and not having to pull my gloves off to get into my phone. For $80 to $400, I mean, that's a huge price difference, and I do think that it is overly expensive for what it is. I would love to compare it to a Sena, but unfortunately I don't have any experience with Sena, and it seems like CARDO at this point, they've marketed so well that I don't know a single person who uses a Sena. That being said, though, CARDO can almost always be had for 20 to 25% off. So don't get scared away by that price tag. You know, you can find a decent deal on them. They do also do a second helmet kit, which is about the same price as one of these units, but where you can actually have the speakers and the mount set up and just swap the communicator between your helmets. And in the future, I will probably do that. I hope this video is helpful. I know when I was trying to do this research, I had a really hard time finding anyone who could speak to the things that mattered to me. And I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of time putting up audio clips to try to compare the two for you guys. It's honestly hard to compare them. And I will say, when it comes to voice quality, there is no comparison. That is where CARDO wins hands down in every single category, whether phone calls, communicating with other riders, or voice commands. There's no competition whatsoever. When it comes to music quality, again, CARDO wins on basically every level. But if you're just riding solo, just riding around town, or riding below 60 miles an hour most of the time, FODSPORTS will get the job done on a budget. That is basically my review of it. I do think the CARDO is worth it. I do think the FODSPORTS or other cheaper communicators can get the job done in certain circumstances. But overall, I do think that you should give CARDO a shot if you haven't. And even though I think some of the advertisements we've seen and some of the way certain creators have talked about it have way overhyped the audio quality, it is definitely better. And even at high speeds, you can still listen to a podcast or an audiobook or have a phone call, and it actually works. And that's where those cheaper end communicators fall apart typically. Hopefully you found this helpful, especially coming up to Christmas time. You might be wondering what to ask for, what to buy yourself. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you guys found this informative and entertaining. Please like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. We're almost at 200 subs, and I would love to hit that before the end of the year. Other than that, hopefully you ride safe, keep two wheels down. Peace out. Bye-bye.